Hello, a warm welcome to BBC News Now. I'm Kasia Madeira. We're going to take you straight away to live shots that we have been monitoring here on BBC News from Athens, the capital of Greece, because this is where we are continuing to see protesters out on the streets. Hundreds of hooded protesters throwing petrol bombs at police in Athens, where thousands of people have been gathering to mark 2 years since Greece's worst ever rail disaster. We're monitoring these live shots across BBC News here of these clashes outside the Parliament building as officers are trying to disperse these crowds with tear gas. Now, this has been going on for a number of hours. Demonstrators saying that they want justice for the 57 people who were killed when a passenger service collided with a freight train near the Tempi gorge 2 years ago. Now, joining us throughout these protests as we've been monitoring these live shots is our news reporter, Christos Papadimitriou, who is with us. And Nikos, just remind us as to the background to why we're seeing thousands of people on the streets really angry. It's because of that train crash 2 years ago.
I think it's because of a train crash 2 years ago. It's the deadliest train crash in country's history, but I would say it's also an anti-government protest that is taking place. People have been protesting for decades of corruption, and as well with the train crash, this is the main reason they are on the streets right now.
Of course, because we're talking about a train crash that happened 2 years ago, but obviously the anger that people are feeling because of what they perceive as the lack of justice. There's a judicial investigation which remains unfinished, and no one has been convicted after what is described as Greece's deadliest train crash. But also, of course, we know, Nikos, that there's a lot of mistrust in Greece with the government following the debt crisis that we've been seeing, in which millions of people lost out on wages and pensions, and public services suffered from underfunding. So a lot of mistrust when it comes to the Greek people and the authorities.
Yeah, we had a lot of scandals, I would say. Apart from the train crash, we had the surveillance scandal a few years ago, where we found out that the Greece National Intelligence Agency was spying on people, and there has been no responsible for that as far as we are aware. And then we had the train crash, of course, that angered people up to the way that, they took over the streets. And now we've seen all the pictures of protesters basically throwing petrol bombs. But as you were saying, I think there is a huge issue of mistrust towards the government. They are not feeling that the justice is transparent enough. They're not feeling justice has been served for all these issues. And on the other hand, the government is not doing enough to address those issues.
And Nico, I guess it's important just to put this into context, because protests do happen in Greece, but just help us to understand what we're seeing today. Is this more or less violent in terms of the throwing of petrol bombs, the number of police out on the streets? Put this into context for us.
I think it's the biggest protest I've ever seen in my life, and I've covered a lot of protests in Greece. We've seen more than 6,000 police officers being deployed over there. We have anti-terrorist and riot police over there. We have drones and helicopters flying over the Syntagma Square in Athens. Just to put into context, it's a really big one, and to be fair, I was expecting those sort of clashes to happen. It's quite common for clashes in Greece and protests this sort of situation that they involve to a petrol bomb war between the protesters and the riot police.
But this is, in your terms, a big one that we're experiencing.
The biggest one I've ever seen.
Wow. Nikos Papadimitriou, thank you very much for being with us throughout the day as we've been monitoring what you describe as Greece's biggest protest that we've been seeing. Of course, we're continuing to monitor the live shots coming from Athens and Greece, and there are numerous protests across the country following that 2-year anniversary of Greece's deadliest train crash. So, of course, we'll bring much more on that throughout the programme.